Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we proudly bring to you Mormonism Live!
Shut up and sit down.
Hello, good evening. Where's all the cheering and the applause, Mr. Reel?
Yeah, I pushed the button, it turned red, and nothing happened. So,
Bad omen.
How are you doing, RFM?
I am fine, thank you. I'm just going to imagine that I can actually hear all the applause from all the people who are watching right now. How many are there, by the way, Mr. Reel?
I'm showing 123 people currently watching.
Wow.
Most of them are from the YouTube channel where 106 people are checking it out. And we've got a few on Facebook, and that's about it. Yeah.
And what are all their
129
addresses
so
and
far.
phone numbers? Can you tell us that too?
Say that again.
And what are all of their addresses and phone numbers? Can you
I don't
tell
have
us
that, but
too?
I've got their social security numbers and the birth date of their firstborn.
Perfect. That's all we need. Well, we have a very, very special episode tonight. And we want to get right into it because there's a lot of ground to cover before we're through, miles to go before we sleep. This is episode 60, titled The Unmasking of Maven. Now, most of you who have been paying any kind of attention for the last month or so have noticed there's a new addition to the Mormonism Live team. Her name is Maven. She's amazing. She's, well, there's a lot of adjectives I could use, but let me be real right now. Okay, if that's okay with you, Bill, if I'm real for a second.
You get to be real.
Maven is articulate, she's intelligent, and she has a vast body of knowledge related to Mormonism, which I find wonderful. And for instance, I was talking with her on the phone this morning, and I mentioned a quote from Elder Holland, I believe it was. And Maven says, "Oh, is that from this talk?" And she names the talk. And I went, "Oh, yeah, that's what it's from." She knew the name of the talk, even though it's years old. So this is the kind of eidetic memory that Maven has. I'm really building it up here.
You're ruining it.
I know.
I'm supposed to undersell.
No pressure.
So that I look good.
No, there is
I
absolutely
think
no
he's
pressure
nailing
tonight.
Yeah, I think he's nailing it. When we brought you on board, you had offered to essentially manage the show and to help us put things up behind the scenes. But what RFM and I learned really quickly is you do have a very good grasp of Mormonism, and it has done nothing but add to our ability to kind of carry out the program. And so we're super pleased with you as an addition.
Thank you. This is my favorite part of every week.
Awesome. Mine
I
too.
love being a part of it.
Mine too.
Look at that.
We have unanimity. It must be revelation. But seriously, folks. So here's the deal. Tonight we're going to have a special Unmasking of Maven. That's the title of tonight's show. It's episode 60. Today's date is January 26, 2022. But before we do that, Maven has come up with a very, very fun game, which I don't think I'd ever heard of before. But it's a way of getting to know somebody that you don't really know. And I think it's called Two Truths and a Lie. Is that right, Maven?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you run us through this, or were you going to do that, Bill?
Well, I'm going to add the first one on, and we're going to see how this works. So I just clicked to put it into the thread. And
Perfect. Okay, so there's 3 statements. 2 of them are true about me. One of them is the lie. So you guys need to pick which one is the lie. So, and Bill's going to make sure to mix them up, right? So that's not always like the same one. That's
oh yeah,
the
it's
lie.
definitely
okay.
in. I got that.
The third
I got that
one.
one
The
down.
third one is always the lie.
Okay, so
Did the
Number
first
one,
one
who's
show
going
up
to
in
read
the,
these?
in the chat?
it showed up, and I was going to actually go from there, but that's okay. So basically, here's the 3. I'm one of a few Westerners who've been able to go inside Dome of the Rock. I studied New Testament under Stephen Harper, and I participated in an archaeological dig in Israel.
Well, all 3 of those sound like lies to me, but you're saying that 2 of them are true?
So I messed up your layout there, Bill. So 2 of them are true.
Let me.
Wow.
No, I can't. Or
Yeah, I can get rid of that. Give me a second.
Okay.
Here.
So
There
this
you
is
go.
Dome of the Rock. This is in Jerusalem. If people didn't know what that was. And so, yeah, right now it is only open to Muslims, but there are some exceptions. The question is, am I one of those exceptions that has been in there?
Okay. So are people guessing as we speak?
Yeah, it looks like, I don't know. I'm only seeing one bar. So does that mean that's the most? Is that the study under Stephen Harper? That's all I see.
Hey, so here's
Does
my
that mean that's the winner?
Yeah, I don't know this. So here's the other issue we're going to run into. I had 7 screens open, each with a different question on it. When I clicked to send the one that was number 1, it instead, I don't think, sent number 1. And then all the other screens, the question I typed out is no longer there. So I can do these, but it's going to take me a minute. So if you guys want to have a conversation, I'll let you know when the second one's ready.
Well, I'll tell you what.
So
Let's go
Austin
ahead.
is saying Stephen Harper's at 44%. But it looks like people are still voting. Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yeah, they probably are.
Everybody, we're going to go through these very quickly. So you're going to have to be quick on your vote. So go ahead. Can you tell us what the truths are and what the lie is on this question, Maven?
All right. So I did study New Testament under Stephen Harper. He was my teacher at the Jerusalem Center the year that I went. And
what year was that, by the way, Maven?
That was 2012.
Okay, thank you.
And I did participate just for one day in an archaeological dig, and I found something, a broken knife. So I'm showing my face already.
Is that you? No, we're not going to show your face until I say okay. No, I'm sorry. No, we can show your face anytime that you want. What we had decided, everybody, was that we were going to wait to show her face until after this question and answer part of the show. But anytime you want. That's you. That's Maven.
Yes.
And you found it
was a piece of a knife, a stone cutting tool.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Yep.
So was that when you were studying under Stephen Harper or something else?
So it wasn't so there was actually a BYU alumni who was there in Israel participating in this specific dig. If I recall correctly, it's supposed to be the or supposedly Gath, which I think is the Philistine city that the giant from, David and Goliath is from. Maybe, of course, you don't always know, but it's about that area. So the Jerusalem Center program is open to anyone of any major. So we really had quite a spread, but there were 3 students who were ancient Near Eastern studies majors. And then I was a cultural anthropology major. So the ancient Near Eastern studies kids, they had actually been invited like secretly to go on this dig just for one day with this BYU alumni. They didn't think about me though. But when I had heard about him, I went up to him like during lunch at the center when he visited us. And I was like, is there any way that I could see your dig? And so that's when I was revealed that there was already some students going and I got looped in. So yeah, it was good because anthropology, like archaeology is part of that. And I learned that I don't like the archaeology part of anthropology. It was really hot and there was a lot of dirt, just a lot of dirt.
I understand that that's a common pickup line in Jerusalem. Can I see your dig?
I mean, there's stuff all over the place. So
you got to be careful. So I'm guessing then that since you just showed us pictures of you being on a dig, that the lie is that you entered
I have not been inside Dome of the Rock, although I was told by the Arabic teacher that I probably could. So I think this is... I'm going to go ahead. If we can put up the next slide. This is me dressed up. I have like an actual, my dad got this outfit because he was in the military and he served in Kuwait for a while. So that's me there on the, far left. So my teacher said like if I wanted to attempt to go in, I would probably be able to do it. But I didn't dare. I was afraid of starting an international war.
Oh, well, yeah, that could happen. I like this picture because everybody looks so happy.
Oh, I don't want to put up anybody's picture that doesn't know that they're going to be on this show. So
yeah, I understand. I appreciate your sensitivity. What's the next question?
Bill, are we ready for the next one?
I put it up, but it's not letting me do the polls anymore. And I don't know why.
I feel like I'm Gene Rayburn on Match Game 77.
I am failing miserably at this. I'm in the place where the polls are. It's all grayed out. It won't let me put another poll in. It's like
it's still showing it's active. So maybe you have to end the poll and put them in one at a time.
I don't even know how to end the poll.
Sorry,
Part of
guys.
Richard Dawson is being played by Bill Reel.
All right, so I'm going to end the poll. That does.
Okay.
You're right. That works. So let's.
There we go.
A little match.
Well, I'll go
game
ahead and
humor.
start. So the next three are all about apostles and prophets. They don't all have a theme. But first one is that I got to shake Gordon B. Hinckley's hand when he visited St. George. I had Richard G. Scott's phone number for a time. And I do have a brief story about meeting Elder Holland.
Yeah, and I did put those up as 1, 2, and 3 in the comments so people can see that, I hope. And while you're working on that, I'll work on the next one.
Well, you said you have a brief story about meeting Elder Holland, which sounds to me
Tell
like
the story.
It's probably true. Otherwise,
Very
we would
good
have said
reasoning
something
skills.
factual. Besides which, I've already seen the answer key. This is the way I passed psychology in community college, was by depending upon the answer key in the back of the book. However, it does sound like that's probably true. So between the other two about having Elder Scott, Richard G. Scott, his phone number?
Yep.
Was it his private phone, and did his wife know? Oh, just a giggle. Okay. Well, we'll leave that
Well,
there.
if I start giving too many details, it'll blow it. But I think we can go ahead and go. There's still like a few votes going. Most are saying number 1, which I don't remember what order I gave him.
That was Gordon B.
That was Gordon B.
hand.
Hinckley. Okay, that is true. So I think this one also could be easy to guess because I think it is known, or some people knew, Gordon B. Hinckley was not a touchy person. Yeah, so I did see him in St. George, did not shake his hand. I did have Richard G. Scott's phone number. And so I guess I have a story about that too. But I mean, it's not that great. Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, it involved like something going on in my life that I don't want to get into, but I just thought, oh man, like if I could ask an apostle, like he will tell me the most brilliant answer I've ever heard. And it so happened that Richard G. Scott did like I think a youth fireside. And so he was like actually there in person. So we all got to go and shake his hand. And so when I shook his hand, I was at the back and I just like asked him, I said, I have something, a question I want to ask you. Is there a time that I could ask you? And really brave on my part. I think I'm really kind of surprised I did it. But he said, yeah. So I don't remember how I got it, if he like wrote it down and handed it to me, or if I maybe gave him my phone number and he did end up calling me. But we did have a chat. He did not have anything, a brilliant answer to my problem, which of course at the time I was like, you know what, that's okay. Apostles shouldn't have to solve everybody's problems. I have, the Holy Ghost and the Lord, and this is my thing to do. So it's, hubris on my part to think, of doing that. So that's how that turned out. But I did have it, and I kept it in my scriptures for a long time. But I think a few years after he died, I was just like, why do I have this? And I threw it away. But now I kind of wish I kept it. Anyway, Elder Holland visited the Jerusalem Center while I was serving there. And we were all, as students, we were notified that he was coming, but we were also threatened by the director to leave him alone and his family alone, because he was there to vacation, and it was supposedly the first time he'd ever been there just for leisure. Elder Holland was extremely involved in the setting up of the center over there. So he had been there a lot, but it had always been business. Anyway, we all did really well at avoiding Elder Holland, and he had a table to eat at in the cafeteria. So it was one day during lunch when we were all in there, he stood up and walked over to us, and he said, I just have an announcement to make. He said, neither me or any of my family have leprosy. We've been checked. We're good. So of course everybody laughs, and we all know, because nobody was talking to him. And then that kind of broke the barrier. A few students did end up going up and talking to him and chatting with him. So yeah.
The next one is up there, and people think that the receiving a trial version of the COVID vaccine is the lie.
Okay. So the other one is that I was married at 18 to a missionary that I promised to wait for when I was 16. And then I was in a wedding in Sri Lanka, right?
Yep.
I just can't see all three of them. Okay.
Yep.
So no, that one is true, actually.
About the trial?
The trial, yes. I can show, when I show my face, I can show my my vaccine card. And I actually just noticed today that it says at the top that I was a trial participant. I thought it was the same vaccine card everyone else had, but just a different formula on it. But anyway, yeah, I did not get married at 18. I was dating a missionary when I was 16, or a pre-missionary. He was about to go on his mission. But at this point, it seemed like a bad idea. I had just turned 16, so I'd only been for a few months before I started dating this guy. And it seemed like a bad idea to stop dating at 16, wait for a guy to come home, and then get married at 18 right out of high school. So I passed on that opportunity. And then I do have a picture of the Sri Lankan wedding. This is just me though, and the sari that I wore. Of course, we had to modify it because normally it would be showing my stomach, but modesty and garments. So
you don't have to be sorry, Maven.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, a little East Indian humor there. But this was not your wedding then.
It was not my wedding. It was my friend's wedding.
Okay. Wow.
So this was my
really
bridesmaid
great.
dress. I did not think I would be able to pull off orange that well. I was really upset when I first saw it, but it turned out okay.
You did great. By the way, orange is my favorite color.
There you go. We have the next one up.
Yeah, the next one is up. And so far, the lie is that you are a state champion of Japanese speaking.
All right. So that one is actually true. The different colleges, there's a state speaking contest, and there's a beginner category and an advanced one. And I've never gotten to the point of advanced. So my Japanese language skills are extremely poor. They were poor 10 years ago, and they're even worse now. But the beginning division involved memorization. So I just had to memorize a Japanese story. And so, so I did. I was the Snow College representative. I was up against, like University of Utah and BYU, which of course have huge language programs. And Snow College is this little teeny podunk, little community college in the middle of nowhere. And I took it from the big guys, and that was fun.
I thought I was kidding about the eidetic memory.
I don't have an eidetic memory. I really, really don't want that
You have
expectation
a pretty good
out
memory.
there. I remember the first line of it, and I cannot remember the rest. But
Right. I served a 2-year mission in Japan, and my Japanese skills aren't that great either.
RFM and I have not talked together in Japanese, and I know on my part, I don't think we can.
Minasan, konbanwa.
Konbanwa, minasan. Okay,
Yes.
and this was something somebody asked if I was an anime geek. I'm familiar with a lot of anime, like because of my familiarity, like with Japanese culture. I've been there a couple times, but I'm not really very big into it. So, but I have heard, I've been recommended to watch Boku no Hero Academia, and I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay.
And so the public bathhouse, that's something that's done.
When you're referring to these, Maven, could you just flesh them out as to what it is that you're talking about? Only because a lot of people will be either watching this and can't see the questions, or they'll be listening to it on audio format.
Okay.
So a bathhouse.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess you could talk about this too. But yeah, it's just a public bathing house. So in Japan, you bathe before you get in the bath. So, so at a public place, I mean, you go in and you're fully naked, but you wash yourself, and then there's like saunas or pools that you relax in. So I had studied abroad in Japan, and I went to one even as a TBM, which I'm also surprised that I had the temerity to do at the time. It was a good experience. Maybe that could be a story for another day, maybe, but
Not even a poncho at the bathhouse.
they give you a little tiny towel, but it doesn't cover much. So you have to pick, do I want to cover top or bottom,
Yeah.
And then after a while, you're like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It
Well,
really doesn't matter.
For some of us, a tiny towel is all we need.
Right. Yeah.
Just FYI, the
Next
last one's up, but the second to last one I still got to put up. So the people are saying that you being in the ward of one of the original 3 Mormons is the lie.
Okay. So should we say all 3 of them?
Are we
first?
saying 3 Mormons? Is this like Midnight Mormons?
I think it's Saints Unscripted now, but it used to be 3 Mormons. But it is like Quaker was on there. Yeah.
Okay, that program, right? I remember now.
Okay, so if I'm getting this sectioning right, it's that I served in the ward of one of the original hosts of the 3 Mormon show. I performed in the Manti pageant, or I'm a licensed security guard. If Cardin or any of the Midnight Mormons would like some protection in the future.
Yeah.
And which one was the lie?
They were
I
going
served
with
in the ward.
Yeah, they were going with the 3
Okay.
Mormons. Yep.
I am really awesome at this game. I would be totally winning because that is true. I won't say who it was. Ed, like he's not been on the show in a while,
So
so
it's Kwaku?
I won't say.
Bingo! I got it. I got it. Say no more.
On my mission, I served, but he was a little guy. I think he was 12 when I was there. He
It's not that
probably
big
would not
now, I
remember
think.
me at all. They're all a lot bigger now. Yeah, I am a licensed security guard, so that offer is a real offer. If the Midnight Mormons, would like my 5 foot, 125 pound frame around to protect them, I am hireable and licensed legally in the state of Utah for that. I did not perform in the Manti pageant.
So that's the lie.
Yep.
Oh, great.
And then there's one more, last one.
Yep, the second to last one is up, and I'm just waiting for people to select some things.
Okay.
But these are the 3
I'll read
where.
them.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, but you go ahead.
What order are they in? But you go ahead and do it, Bill.
Yeah, I don't know what order. Let me see if it served in the hometown of the artist Pink, confirmed that the SCMC has a file on you, and you've played the traditional Tahitian drums. And so far, people are saying the lie is that the SCMC has a file on you that you know about. And it looks like that's going to stay the one as of right now. Okay.
All right. So this one, the audience wins. I have no idea. Probably not. Oh, I'm surprised though. I thought that would have been a good one because of RFM's episode on it. Like, so people should know RFM's got a connection, so he could have found that out. So I figured that he could have been the one to tell me.
Yeah, but I'm
Somebody's
not
got
a
Elder
squealer.
Dykes.
I'm not a squealer, Maven. I didn't rat you out.
Well, you wouldn't rat me out, but you could have called and been like, hey, do you care who Maven is? Or do you even know who she is?
Do what you want to Maven, but leave me alone.
Throw me under the bus. Yep. I did serve in the hometown as Pink, Doylestown, Pennsylvania. My mission was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And then Tahitian drums, I did do that, and I have the pictures to prove it there. I still have the drumsticks too, actually. I've got them packed somewhere. But yeah, that's me. I did that. All right.
That is great. You do so many interesting things, and you have done so many interesting things in your relatively, to me, short life.
Thank you. You know, when you have enough time to think about it, like you can really play up almost anything. So yes, shall we do the big reveal?
Shall we? Let's. Drum roll, please.
I have to go in my settings here. Oh no, here it is. All right, everybody.
Here we go. There she is. Hello. There's Maven.
Oh my goodness, it feels so anticlimactic.
No, everybody's loving this. Are you kidding me?
Or maybe just because I can't hear like a collective gasp from the audience. But yeah, so I don't know if anybody is watching the show that does actually know me in real life. Please don't dox me. If you do, I do want to kind of stay Maven in these spaces. But if you do know me, definitely reach out so we can connect up again. And I do have friends here today. And I dyed my hair purple just for you guys, just for this.
You did?
I've had it colors before, so it wasn't too big of a deal. But
that's great. And you did it because of your avatar that you've been using?
Yeah. And then here's my
the trial participant.
Novavax. It's out in some places, but still not out in the US. But I haven't gotten COVID, so I don't know. I guess it's working okay that I know of.
By now.
I have the best one ever. Everyone should sign up for medical trials, I guess.
I think I've heard of that vaccine. The reason it's not out in the US is because of the horrible side effects and the trials.
All right. I'm so sorry, everyone in the chat. I see my name highlighted, but it's not something I can keep up with now. But I'll definitely read it after. So I appreciate the support. Shall we jump into the story?
Let's jump into the story. By the way, there's so much that Maven has to say, and so little time. We don't have 7.5 to 9 hours tonight to do it justice. So we're skipping her childhood. She was born in the Covenant in an active LDS family. She grew up as an active, observant, and very devout Mormon young lady.
Literal believer.
And a believer?
Literal believer.
Literal, very literal believer.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we're going to get to your coming of age. You're graduating from high school. You have a certain series of events that happen that lead you to question the faith that initially you had no questions whatsoever about. Is that correct?
That's correct. So I think, should we jump into the temple?
Sure.
We can just start there. Okay. So I went to the temple to get ready to go on my mission, which was something that I had always wanted to do. So by the time I got there, I'd had friends get married, and of course, male friends leave and go on missions and come back. By this time, I started to get the sense that it wasn't like the most amazing experience that it's taught to you is when you're in young men and young women. And it really troubled me. And at first I just judged my friends as maybe not being properly prepared. So I really wanted to be prepared, and I was determined to have a good time there. So I went in with like a super low bar and a really open mind. And I just wanted to just let everything go. And it was a fairly good strategy overall. I feel like it went pretty well, but there were a couple of parts that were still troubling and continued to be troubling every time I went. The very first one is that I went in, before they've made some of the most recent changes. So after, being a member of the church my whole life and being constantly taught to look forward to making covenants with God at the temple, the very first time that I am standing up and making a covenant, it's to my husband, which I don't even have, instead of God. And that was really troubling for me because it's right after the men all covenant with God, and I covenant to hearken to my husband who hearkens to God. And so that was deeply hurtful, but it's the first time things are going on. So like you just kind of push it back and keep going. But I did remember feeling very distinctly, just kind of wondering why my Heavenly Father doesn't want me to covenant with him directly. Why am I getting kind of shuffled off to, again, like somebody that I don't even know who it is yet? So anyway, that was the first one. And then I couldn't help but notice that after the fall, Eve never speaks again the whole time. And even after like its subsequent visits to the temple, I would hyper focus on that. I would be watching her the whole time and just thinking about the actress playing her and just thinking like she does a pretty good job for having a mute part, but still having to be there, like watch men talk around her. She doesn't look bored, but she's not hamming it up too much. Like I just couldn't, it just always pulled me out of the video that she never spoke again. Which I think is something they've changed now. And then the last thing, and this one, like I feel it hurt the most, and it hurt the most every time I went back, was having us veil our faces. It just felt so demeaning, I think. And then, I don't know, I erased. I guess that's kind of the way it felt, and when you look at your side with all the other women and all of us are veiled, there's just no personality. There's no, we just look like ghosts, like literally ghosts. But if I look over at the men, you can see all their faces. They can see everything. It's all easy.
Yeah, all the men look like bakers.
Right. But you can at least see their faces,
Right.
Your face is who you are. And so, yeah, it almost felt like shameful. Like I'm hiding because there's something that's so sacred about this part that like my face would ruin it. That's kind of the feeling that it was like, why is this so sacred? I have to cover up for it. And the men don't. I really tried so hard so many times to try to like find a reason that was totally cool and okay for that. And I just never could. And I just always ended up feeling really sad. And one more temple experience, this was just the first time that I went. At the very end, when I'm in the celestial room with my family and ward members, this ward member came up with this cute old lady that's been in the ward forever and knows my family. She came up to me and she had this like smile on her face. And she tells me, it's a little bit different than when I went through the temple. And so, yeah. So I go, different? And she says, yes. And again, it still gets me, this smile that she had on her face. But she said, when I went through, there were penalties. And I had never heard that before. And I was like, oh? And she said, yeah. And then she mimed him. She said, we used to promise to slit our throat and cut open our stomachs. And I just remember being so shocked. And again, like I'm in the celestial room. It's supposed to be like holy and spiritual, but I feel sick and horrified. So my first reaction was that she's lying. That can't be true.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, because that's just my reaction. It was horrific to think that people would promise that.
This
And
nice old lady is lying to me in the celestial room.
right,
but of course,
that's what I thought. I was just like, no, I think, and I think because I had heard something maybe in the past, I think that kind of after the initial shock, I did realize I was like, I think she's telling the truth. And there was someone else, I think it might have been my dad even, like standing near me. So he didn't correct me or correct her. So anyway, I just remember just having this moment, because then once I thought it was true, I was still horrified by it. So I gotta figure out why it's okay. And so there really was just like a brain freeze moment where just no thinking happened. And then the way that I solved it in my mind was to just say like, oh, those early saints, they were a little intense sometimes, weren't they? And just kind of like laugh it off. And that was something that happened my first time going through the temple. So that's how I found out about the penalties.
Did you later on talk to your dad and ask him,
No.
is this true?
No.
Okay.
In the very beginning, they even had an extra oath where all the saints promised to get revenge for Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith.
That's right. I do remember learning that later. Yeah. Anyway, so that was my temple experience. But overall, again, like I said, like I had like a low bar, and I just was really trying to be open-minded and just go with the flow. So I felt like it was okay.
So Maven, you had a low bar when you went to the temple.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Your experience managed to still go under the bar.
Yes. I guess so. I guess that's what we're saying. Yeah. So what's next? Because I'm sorry, I've got like too many things to look at. Okay.
What's next? I
mission.
would like. Okay,
Oh,
yeah, it's
go
your
ahead.
mission, because you are going through the temple for your endowment in preparation for your mission, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you've been called to Philadelphia,
Right.
PA.
Yes. And so I get ready to go. And so, before I went, I was getting a lot of really hateful comments from a lot of elders about sister missionaries, just about how much they hated them. And they would never marry one, which I had never heard before until right before I was about to go on my mission. So that was a little bit weird to me at the time. But
Is this
on
at
my
the
mission,
MTC or in your ward?
no, this is just right before, like in my ward and at BYU. I went to BYU Hawaii, so it was just, just in my peer group, I'd be like, I'm putting in my papers, and guys would be like, ugh, don't do that.
Really? So
they would say like, I hated sister missionary. I promised myself I will never marry a returned sister missionary. I was shocked.
This is news to me, because it's such an inversion.
It was
The
more
young
than
women,
one. Yeah.
Wow. Young
It
women
happened
are
a lot.
trained. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. Young women are trained that they're supposed to marry a returned missionary, but apparently there's a prevailing sentiment among the young men that they are definitely not going to marry a returned missionary.
And I have some things that I suspect are the case for that. I think sisters who serve missions are more outspoken or more confident. And so it's not as easy to BS them. But when you've got a return male missionary who's, learned how to talk the talk and learned the sales tactics, and you've got a fresh, young 19, 18-year-old girl, it's someone that's really easy to impress with your spirituality and your experience out in the world, and you've got the talking skills. It's really easy to do. But you can't do that with a sister that's also served, because she's got the same experience and she knows what it's like. And so you got to do more than talk the talk. That's what I think.
You have served with the elders for 1.5 years, and so
yes, my elders on my mission were amazing. I just want to say that.
Yes, but you find out how the sausage is made, if you'll forgive the expression.
Yeah. I feel like my mission overall was pretty good. The previous mission had a lot of, I guess, like what we call the baseball type baptisms. So ours was very strict, but I think properly focused on have genuine converts who were ready, and not just trying to go for the numbers. It did always bother me and my companions. Of course, anytime we did have a baptism, we always had to like pull in the elders to do the interviews and to actually either do the baptism if there wasn't somebody else in the ward. And it just, every time there was one, we would always say like, I just don't get why couldn't we do it? Is it really that big of a deal? And we would just be like, oh, well, that's how it is, I guess. And then just like move on from that. And then how
did that make you feel?
I mean, I it was important to me to be faithful, because it was the most important thing to come out of this life with, is to still have your faith. So I never wanted to feel too upset about anything, because that could lead to offense and dissatisfaction and eventually apostasy. So if I felt uncomfortable, or if I felt lesser about anything for being female, I would just push it down and push it out. I didn't want to dwell on it.
But you did feel lesser because
you can't not feel it.
Right.
So you just have to feel it, and then just try to find some place to shove it, or something to distract you from it. That's kind of what you have to do. So, do you want me to tell you about, I guess there's my first time like ever really pushing back against someone with priesthood authority over me.
Yes, please
And
tell us that story.
Because I knew, like, people aren't perfect, of course, like we say. And so I had the belief at the time that even if a priesthood holder was wrong about something, you would still be blessed by following them, and you're just helping them out as they're gaining their footing, and they're, making their own life journey. And that was definitely true for like my district leaders and zone leaders, who are young men that are younger than me and have less life experience than me. I never pushed back on anything they did, even if I thought it was maybe not the smartest, but I wanted to support them in their priesthood and their first attempts at leadership. You go, you got it. Like, I'm here for you, right? So, and they were really great, and I didn't have any problems until right towards the very end. My companion and I were teaching a couple, but the husband had advanced lung cancer, and so he ended up passing away. And I was there for it. Like the moment that it happened, he was getting brought home for hospice care, because it was to the point where nothing could be done anymore. And he had wanted to be at home. And they just were all set up for it to still be a couple weeks. But as soon as they passed him over the threshold and I was there holding open the door, that's when he stiffened up and he was gone. And so my companion and I, of course, were there with the family, just dealing with the grief, because nobody expected it to happen that soon. So his mother, his wife, brothers and sisters, we're all just there, just listening. And that's one thing I'm really grateful for too. We did not try to do plan of salvation right then. We just listened to them talk about him and tell stories and cry and all that. And it was starting to get a bit late. It was getting past curfew. I called my district leaders and I told them what happened, and they were very great. And they were like, "We're so sorry, sisters. Let us know if there's anything we can do for you. And, don't worry about the curfew. Just tell us when you get home." So everything was fine. But then a few minutes later, I got a call from the zone leaders, and they said, "Where are you at, sisters?" And so at first I thought maybe something didn't translate correctly when the district leaders did their phone call to the zone leaders. So I just started explaining what happened over again. And my zone leader said, "Well, Sister Maven, what does the White Handbook say?" And I just remember being shocked, about curfew. And I said, after a while, I just said, "I know what the handbook says, Elder." And that was like the first time I really like pushed back or said something, against someone like that. And again, I know it's like someone that was my age, but still, I just really felt strongly that I was doing the right thing. And so he was trying to get us to go home. And I said, "Elder, we're not going to stay here all night. We will go home, as soon as we appropriately can. Like, this is a special situation." And he tried to argue with me. And so at one point I had a really great mission president. And so I said, "You can call president if you have a problem with this." Cause I was certain that he would back us up on that. And I don't know if he ever did. I kind of hope he did, because I know he would have gotten a dressing down. But I think maybe he probably was a bit more bolder with me than with the mission president. So I don't think he ever did call. But anyway, that was the first time I was ever like, "I'm doing the right thing. I'm not listening to you."
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah. Zone leader, as much fun as we're having here with the stiff and the grieving family, we're not going to be here all night. Okay. And by the way, I have read the White Handbook, and it says that you are a dick.
I wish I could never have at that point.
There are several people in the chat with names that I've never seen in our chat before, and they're all asking questions like what city do you live in, and what areas did you serve your mission in, and so you can avoid those if you want. But just so you know, there's lots of people I've never seen before asking personal questions to try. That's
interesting. I did invite a few friends of mine to it, but I'm not recognizing any names so far. But that's okay. And I think there's just not a lot of time, but I appreciate everybody's curiosity. Maybe we'll get there someday.
Get used to disappointment.
All right. Should we move on to BYU? I know there's so much stuff. And
let's go on to BYU and let's hear about this shelf of yours.
Okay. So I, after the mission, I return to school. I go to BYU, Hawaii, and I start studying the cultural anthropology program. And so that's where things really start getting added to my shelf. But at the same time, I'm also just reinforcing it with the worst apologetics, but they're working for me at the time. But you can't study anthropology and turn, a magnifying glass on different cultures without doing it to your own. So it was a very different curriculum, because it's the first time that I was ever in an environment, a church environment, no less, where these kinds of things could be looked at and poked at with not just like the most faithful view, if that makes sense. We were just able to talk a lot more objectively than anybody in the church ever really could usually. And that became the norm for us. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you give us one example of what you're talking about, studying the culture of a different group and that informing your view of Mormonism?
Sure. One example is just starting to see just how much politics and history and just the culture of what else is going around. I always thought of Mormonism as this very pure thing, revealed as the way that God revealed it, and all of the values we have because God revealed them. But then I kind of started to realize that a lot of them have to do with the values of early Americans in Joseph Smith's time, the liberty or freedom, that, and then also politics. That I started to realize that Republican politics had a lot to do with positions in the church. And I still had reasons why I could make it okay, but I could at least start to separate it out. I used to think, and I was taught literally, like a good Mormon is a Republican. Like you can't be a Democrat and be a good Mormon. They were like tied together. So I started to separate them out. Another example is just reading about kinship models, and the nuclear family is not the thing that's been around in history forever, that it's actually a relatively new construct and concept. And then also patriarchy, the idea of it maybe not being so good for a lot of reasons. I remember reading an article about it and just talking about how abuses are more common and hierarchy is more common, and they're less egalitarian than matriarchal societies. I remember reading this article and just being like, man, this is making patriarchy look bad, But like, how could it be? Because I everything's patriarchy in the church. That was always a very good thing, like patriarchal blessings, Right. Yeah. So like there's stuff like that kind of, so we were able to talk about culture. I mean, kind of in a way that like post-Mormons are able to do a lot better than believing Mormons. But I was a believing Mormon, but I was just in a context where everyone was agreeing and was okay with it. But it would be funny because everyone would have, or not everyone, but I would say almost every class, at least once a semester, would have someone where you could tell something hit a nerve in them, the testimony nerve. Church. Hello, Elder Dykes.
Here's my old friend from the SCMC, recently retired.
Oh, that's funny.
He does monitor the program. I told you so. Actually, he's retired. Somebody else is now filling his shoes.
Oh, okay. So you don't have the connection anymore.
No.
Okay. I forgot
think
what
he was
I
one
was
of the
saying.
Happiest general authorities to retire in recent history. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm off track, so I'm trying to remember.
I had asked you about a specific example. You gave us, I think, 3.
I know. I remember where I was going with it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So what would happen is everyone had moments where something hit a little too close to the testimony, and so we would be in class having a discussion about patriarchy or kinship or something like that. And then all of us, someone would raise their hand and they would start bearing testimony. This was a fairly regular occurrence, and we all knew what was happening, and we all just kind of let it happen. It was cognitive dissonance. we knew that that's what that person was going through. And I was that person too. Also, there were times where I was just like, look, this is, this is tough. I'm learning this, and I know, but I know Joseph Smith is a prophet, and I believe the Book of Mormon, and all of my professors were all asked about their testimonies too, because there are times where like you would just learn stuff that you would realize this is troubling information. This doesn't quite comport with the narrative. But here I'm at BYU learning this. I'm in a church context. I have a believing professor. So, and they're here teaching this. So there's got to be a way to make it okay. So it was fairly common for them to be asked, like, how do you make this okay? That's not how we asked it. But we always knew what was being asked. But the question usually was like, what does this mean? And we all inherently knew what that question was, which was, I'm having trouble reconciling something. Professor, can you please tell me how you do it? That's basically what it was. So there's that program. And then can I just say one thing really great about BYU Hawaii is that it is just way more diverse. So my classes had a lot more diversity than what is available at Provo. So that was a really great thing about it.
Well, that's good. I've never been there. I thought you were going to say the great thing about BYU Hawaii is it's in Hawaii.
It's in Hawaii. That is also great. It is very chill. It's the most chill out of all by necessity. But it always seems like, but there's always kind of a conflict between, I guess this is every university everywhere, between students and administration. But I feel like it was deeper at BYU Hawaii because the students were culturally diverse, and administration almost always were white, higher up, wealthy people from Utah that would be imported in. So there was always like extra kind of culture clashes. And they would always be in for a few years, just enough to maybe start getting it. And then you bring a new white guy in from Utah, to serve another portion. And they would occasionally try to crack down on flip-flops like at Idaho, but that's just not going to happen in Hawaii. You can't do that. It's not going to happen. You'd have to kick out half the student body.
Was it while you were at BYU Hawaii, that you served or studied abroad at the Jerusalem Center?
Yeah, it was in the middle of that time that I went to Jerusalem and then came back to graduate.
Did you have some additional photos of that?
Of Jerusalem?
Yes, or did we already see those?
I don't remember if I have some more on my... I didn't put a lot together. I have some BYU Hawaii photos, but not a lot of Jerusalem, because a lot of my Jerusalem photos have other people in them. So
okay, yeah. Fair enough.
We
can
put up Hawaii though.
What were the other things in brief that started adding weight to your shelf?
So there's a program that was just started at BYU Hawaii called the Conflict or Peace Building and Conflict Resolution Program. And that one, I learned about cognitive dissonance there. And the first year of that program is all self-referencing. So I thought it would be like, here's how we can like get people to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and say, can't we all just get along, But it was intensely introspective. We really, really got down really deep. And in class discussions, you just have a whole classmate, class full of classmates who are holding you accountable. So it's one thing to learn about cognitive dissonance on your own and try to work through and kind of come up with things, but to have 30 students that will not let you get away with excuses, it could just be really jarring sometimes. So I would leave those classes, especially that first year, just like mentally exhausted and just realizing I'm not the great person that I think I am, There's a lot of things I do that contribute to conflict, and a lot of things that, I like to think I'm brave, but I realize I'm a coward about, things like that. It was a really intense program. So it really, I gave me the mental blocks, or I guess the founding, I'm getting my words mixed up, but the foundation, right, to really eventually start to unravel things. But at the time, I was still fine. When I graduated BYU Hawaii, even with the cultural anthropology program and the peace building and conflict resolution program, still very strong testimony. And the Jerusalem Center too, despite the things I learned there. So
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going from your outline. You had briefly thumbnailed just a few more issues that added weight, and they're mainly social issues, I think.
Yes.
And that's adding weight to your shelf, by the way, just to be clear.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. And it was definitely, I just didn't like to notice things that made me uncomfortable about the church. And so at BYU Hawaii, it was more apparent, the racism that could happen and what other students' experiences were. I got to hear so many more. I just really started to realize that Mormon culture wasn't just like the revealed culture that I thought it was, but it's white culture. It's white conservative Utah culture, and it's getting imposed on other people. And so it's things like that. The Polynesian Culture Center is also right there next to the campus, and they pull in a lot of students from the poor countries, from the islands, from the Philippines, to work there, and they get their education for free. So I, in some ways, I feel like it is a really great program that gives students a chance at an education that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. But there's also some kind of exploitation feel to it. The students really couldn't complain a lot because they were constantly being told like how great it was, how lucky they were to be there. That it's all the generosity of the church and donors and things like that. So yeah, and if you don't like it here, there's plenty of people, from your country that would love to be in your shoes and to have this opportunity that you have. It's just things like that would just kind of like, make you feel unsettled sometimes. But then, of course, the normal things that everyone else, just LGBTQ issues, the ordained women movement started to happen actually towards the end of my graduation. So after that, but that was something that added some weight to me. Is that where you're at, like in the outline?
Yes, the LGBTQ issues, racism,
Yes.
ordained women movement, and the policy of exclusion.
The policy of exclusion.
2015. Yes.
Yeah, so I was graduated at that point. I just want to jump back to Jerusalem really, really quickly. We studied like the New Testament and the Old Testament courses were not like the Institute courses at the regular BYUs. They were intense and they were a lot more scholarly. So I was learning the documentary hypothesis. I learned what biblical exegesis meant. I was learning about, it's an ancient Near Eastern studies program. So we were studying the Epic of Gilgamesh and all of these stories, origin stories, where, that are obvious sources for the Bible. Again, at the time, I could justify it in my mind. Another thing that really kind of stood out to me when I was there was how little evidence there was for a lot of the biblical stories. I had just assumed and taken for granted that they were fact and known fact, and that there's a lot of evidence for them. So that was one thing that I realized when I was there, was that it was not nearly as much as I had thought. But that was okay. That just increased my testimony of the restoration. That's why we need the Book of Mormon, and that's why we need prophets. It's all okay. It's okay. Everything's okay. It all holds up. So I was fine with it. But that was something that did end up kind of coming back later. So,
did you hear about a little known statement by Elder Dallin H. Oaks about not apologizing, that the church doesn't apologize? And if you heard it, which I think you did,
yes.
How did you feel about it?
It really bothered me because of the peace building program. I knew that apologies are a critical key component, especially when there's a lot of, if we're talking about like generational hurt and trauma for things, major scales. Even if you're not the person directly responsible for it, it goes a long way and is really a critical step in starting the healing process. And there was a lot of power to apologies, and this is good for everybody. And I think, I really think you probably have done this in your marriages, where maybe you really don't think you were wrong, but you apologized anyway, and that was still the right thing to do.
Not once.
Me neither. That never happened on my mission or anything. So it really bothered me because I knew that was not a true principle. Again, at the time, nobody's perfect, and Dallin H. Oates can't know everything. So maybe this is one of the things that he doesn't know. So, but it bothered me. It always did. And then Jonathan Streeter, if we bring this up, he had done the really well crafted kind of fake apology letter that he crafted to look like it was official, officially from the church.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
A lot of members fell for it and really thought, that it was genuine. And I just remember just seeing the title and just starting to see it pop up on my feed, like on Facebook. I knew it wasn't. I knew it couldn't be, because I knew that like Dallin Oaks was right. Like, the church would not apologize ever. They were not going to apologize for it. So it really gave me this sinking feeling I was embarrassed by that.
So it wasn't the format or anything else about this fake apology that
I hadn't
Jonathan
even read
Streeter
it
did.
yet.
Brilliantly done, by the way, I believe.
It was
But
well done. Yeah.
it was because you just knew that the church would never apologize that led you to the conclusion it must be a fake.
Right. And then I was put in this weird place where like I wanted to tell my friends, like, don't spread this, because I knew an anti-Mormon had to write it, obviously. So I was like, why are they, how is it that they're not seeing this for what it is? But I didn't, because I didn't want to be like, this is fake, because the church would never apologize. Like I'm saying something bad. It was a really uncomfortable feeling to be in. And so I did actually read it, because I was like, so many people are like, are they really falling for this? And so I read it, and it really was well done. It encompassed a lot of principles that I had learned about. And so it's better than the church ever could have done. That was another thing I realized. If the church ever did, it would be like we're sorry, feelings were hurt kind of a thing. Not we're sorry, just, it was just so well done. And there were a few call outs like in there where I was like, this is an anti-Mormon for sure. It's, but yeah, it was another cognitive dissonance kind of moment where I was just really uncomfortable. I was like, why is it that an anti-Mormon who's like fighting against the church and trying to tear it down, why can they write a better, more healing letter that the real church won't do? It was troubling.
That is just one slice of the brilliance of that fake apology, I think. It highlights so many things about the church which are not good.
Right. And then the policy of exclusion. I was aware of the analogy of a shelf because it is from a faithful talk.
Yeah, by the way, a lot of people don't know
that.
that. I know that from the 1970s when I joined the church, that the metaphor of a shelf where you put doubts or questions, where you put questions or things you don't understand, that came from church leaders.
Somebody's asking if you'd ever been to Angie's Ice Cream in, I think, Hawaii.
There's Angie's, and then there was, it's closed now, but I'm embarrassed now that I'm forgetting it. It was a Japanese name on the North Shore. I did not go to Angie's that I recall.
Okay.
So yeah, if someone could put it starts with an M. That was the ice cream shop that like everyone went to. But yeah, if we're going back, when the policy of exclusion came out, I knew that couldn't be right. I just knew. I knew in my heart that it was wrong. And so, but I jumped on the policy train because I just wasn't ready. I've had so much stuff. There's so many points at any time in my life that that could have been the final straw. But if you're not ready, you're not ready. And I still wasn't ready. And so I tried to say something about the policy to somebody. And they were like, no, Elder Nelson said it was revelation, because he was still an apostle then and not the prophet. And that really troubled me. And they said, like, he said it at BYU Hawaii. And so, and I never looked it up because I didn't want to, because I was afraid that if I looked it up and saw, and maybe I could have, if I had, and if I watched those words come out of his mouth, that it was a revelation, then I would have known. Whereas because I didn't watch it, I still had some plausible deniability that actually happened. This other person's mistaken, but I'm not going to look to make sure, because I knew if Elder Nelson did say that it was revelation, then I would know then that Elder Nelson was lying, and I couldn't face that. So that was definitely like shelf. I am putting this on the shelf. I don't know what to do with this. To push it out.
Yeah,
but things were starting to get really difficult for me at this time.
Yeah, and so
I was embarrassed to be. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I just want to insert a few words every now and again so people won't forget whose show this is. No, I'm kidding. I kid because I love. No, but it's so interesting to me because this is so much what I did, which is you are actually at the University of Hawaii, or that's your alma mater. Mm-hmm. It is the simplest thing in the world to go on to the church website and look up this talk. Malia's Ice Cream?
No, it's a Japanese name.
Was it Yamamoto?
Or maybe it was not.
That's a maybe? That's a little Pearl Harbor humor.
It wasn't. It started with an M.
Funny about it.
Somebody's got to know it.
Not Yamamoto.
Matsumoto's. Yeah, it is Matsumoto's. Ryan Bingham. I don't know if anyone else put it in there, but I just saw it. Yes. Ryan. Yes.
Ryan
Matsumoto's.
Bingham.
Thank you so much.
Shaved ice.
Yes, with azuki beans. Just kidding. It took me a while to get used to those.
Ryan, for your participation, you have won a wooden nickel. It is
there
in the
you
mail.
go.
Cool. What kind of beans is that? Fava beans?
No,
Chianti?
azuki bean, the red beans.
I don't even know.
Come on,
You call those-
yes,
you
you
call
do.
those-
They were all over in Japan, everywhere. Like if
You call
you
those
had
kidney
like a bean, like a roll that had beans in the middle. Are you joking with me, or I don't know if you're being facetious?
It's been a long
No,
time for me.
if you had a filled bun and it had like a red paste in it, it was those beans.
Okay.
Well,
Maybe I did then, and I just ate them unknowingly. I probably ate a lot of things unknowingly.
we need to take a trip to Japan. I think, and we all need to get reacquainted. I think with stuff.
The biggest surprise was when I bit into a burger in Japan and it meowed.
Oh no!
No, that's terrible. That's terrible.
That is terrible.
So anyway, but
so moving.
As Charles Barkley would say, that's terrible, man. Terrible. Yeah, that's how he says it.
Is that a good impression? Because I really don't know Charles Barkley.
LeBron James is terrible. Yeah,
that sounds like Christopher Walken doing that guy, LeBron James. No, do it again. That's Christopher Walken.
Man,
doing an impression
LeBron James, he is terrible.
You see what I mean?
For Christopher Walken, you need the weird pauses, like in the weird places.
In the weird places, because that's acting. No, what I was saying was, and I don't even remember if I got to the point, and maybe it's not important, but that you're in a position where you can very easily find this information and to check it out because it's very important to you to go one way and not the other, but you intentionally resist going to this easily accessed information to find out because you don't want to know the answer if he's claiming it's revelation. And actually, he didn't just say it was revelation. I mean, he told this rather intricate, dramatic story about how the Spirit of God moved on President Monson, and and he, when he spoke, it was the mind of the Lord and the will of the Lord and the everything of the Lord, and everybody else was honored and privileged to sustain that. And then he may have said revelation. I mean, he goes into detail. It's almost like the detail of a story about an airplane crash that he was in. Yeah, and the nosedive and the spiral and the one engine exploding.
It just gets bigger and bigger.
Yes, which is kind of funny because that's sort of what happened with that policy of exclusion. It was sort of putting the church into a nosedive after taking a direct hit to the fuselage.
Right. And at this point, like, again, I still really very much believe in the church. I always believed the church was true and the church was good. But I'm really starting to have trouble with the good part now. I'm starting to see, I don't think people are necessarily happier in the church, especially someone coming in from the outside. I don't want to actively try to convert people in anymore. And there are some people that I know for a fact that they will be less happy if they were to gain a testimony. So these are just kind of unsettling feelings that are just kind of simmering around for a while. But yeah, I am wondering, and also on the other end, like, are Mormons really any better than other people? I used to, I would have been one of those people that's like, I met an atheist and he was actually really nice, like it's a big surprise, like, that, people not Mormon can be helpful, like that's kind of how I was as a teenager. But at this point, I'm just like, I actually don't know that Mormons are any better than anyone else, and maybe sometimes kind of worse. Maybe, I don't know. I'm starting to feel really uncomfortable about things. But again, I still have a testimony, and I really want to preserve that testimony. So, but when the policy was reversed, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just gonna say, in private practice as a lawyer, it turns out that Mormons are like the worst at paying their bills to Mormon lawyers.
Oh,
they're the worst. I'm not saying that's universal because certainly it's not universally the case. But as a class and as a group and as a gross generality, yeah, they're really bad at paying their bills when their lawyer's a Mormon.
That's interesting. I'm wondering if they're hoping that you'll kind of write off the rest as charity work, but there's also this kind of like inside man, like, come on, man, like, really?
Yeah, give me the Gaijin Watabiki.
You don't need my money, do you?
No, yeah. I mean, we have this culture. You're supposed to help each other out. You're supposed to serve. You're supposed to home teach. You're supposed to help move.
Right.
You're supposed to represent me in a DUI, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So when the policy was reversed again later, I was still in, but that was problematic all over again because I was happy that it happened. I knew the first one was not right, but like was so soon. I really thought it was going to be a while. So it was kind of shocking to me how quickly they flipped it. And again,
Especially
it was just
after
like
claiming it was revelation. Did you know that
yes.
he had said it was revelation by the time they reversed it?
Yes. And so, yeah, it was just really, really tough to reconcile. It was
Yeah.
I was like, why, you know, I was almost resenting like the leaders at this point, like why I'm trying so hard. I'm trying so hard to keep my faith. And you keep doing stuff like this. And also Elder Nelson or President Nelson, when he like, you know, kiboshed Mormon, I just was like, really?
Is that the biggest thing?
That's what you want to do?
That's
you
the
know?
biggest issue we have to deal with in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember Gordon B. Hinckley's talk back in the day, like,
93,
you know,
I think.
yeah. I mean, everyone loved Gordon B. Hinckley. He was he was very personable. So just like that kind of stuff, that's still in my memory. So for President Nelson to come in and just be like, no, we are not Mormon. Stop saying that. It's just more and more where I'm just like, I kind of feel like it really seems like just normal men like up there. I don't know. Like, you know, it just can't
either seems
face
like
it.
normal guys up there, like President
doing
Nelson
their
has
own
had this sort
thing.
of this gospel hobby, this little thing
Yeah.
that this hobby horse that he rides, and he's ridden it since 1993, and he expressed it in General Conference, and he got shot down in the next General Conference by President Hinckley, and
By
he's
name.
just been simmering. He's been biding his time until he could become president, so he could enforce this edict that
Right.
you shall not refer to the Mormon Church as the Mormon Church anymore.
Right. And then especially just seeing just so many sociocultural problems going on at the time, I feel like people were starting to get more emboldened to be, you know, more racist. You know, it's just things were happening, and I was just like, is this really what God's priority is? You know, with all these things happening in the world right now.
And the reversal was in April
Yeah.
of 2019, I
Mhm.
believe. That's correct, right?
I think so. It was
Yeah, it's
15
3.5
to
years
19.
later.
Yeah.
So that's
This is very close
3
to the
years ago.
beginning of the end. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
long ago.
It was 2019 that everything did eventually end up falling apart for me. So this
What
was,
happened?
you know, was it April? Because this is what's funny. In April of 2020, I'm not usually a superstitious. Well, I am a superstitious person. I don't really think much about dreams, but I had a dream in April that my teeth were falling out. It was a really jarring dream. I'd never had anything like that happen before, but it was really unsettling because like I couldn't stop it from happening. Like my teeth were falling out like faster than I could try to like put them back in. It was so weird, but apparently it's actually a really common dream. It's supposedly a stress dream, but I was like, my life is really good right now. You know, I was making more money than I had been before. I was just a lot more settled. So I was like, I don't think I'm not stressed out. So why am I having a very common stress dream? But, you know, when things did fall apart, it really felt a lot like that. Like I'm losing something really important that I need that's not going to be easy to fix, you know, or it basically is impossible to fix.
And you're trying to put them back in, but it's not
well,
working.
initially, but like I couldn't, you know? And so, yeah, it really, I don't know. So I don't know if there's something to that. That's just a little random quip I threw in there. But anyway,
I'm pretty sure it's April of 2019 because if memory serves, they announced it in the week leading up to conference.
I don't recall like the specific timing on that, but
okay,
but it was problematic to me at the time. Yeah. So you know, as we're moving forward, I am just starting to see more. Not just that, but also the church getting other things wrong. Not just like the racism that they got wrong and the priesthood and the temple ban, but a lot of sexual stuff, just the purity culture and modesty and masturbation shaming, all of these things I'm starting to learn and realize for the first time how unhealthy they are. So that was another thing for me, was like, if the church is so, you know, big on families and this has been so important to us that like we did the whole Prop 8 thing, and this is what people know, as even people who don't know much about Mormons will still say, well, they seem to be really big on families, you know, like that's how well the church has marketed themselves that way. How is it that we get this wrong? You know, how is it that we hurt so many people this way? And it's just exactly what all the evangelical and other like mainstream Christian churches do that hurt their members too. I started to see problems there as well. So it just seemed like important things were being gotten wrong for a church that's supposed to be led by revelation. and then, so I guess I started to get back into biblical study. I hadn't kept up on a lot of stuff that I had learned in Jerusalem, but I don't know really what happened, but I just started to key into it again. And at first I was studying, I guess also just Christian theology in general. I was starting to see some of the problems with it. But again, like, I'm so scared of anti-Mormon material that I feel like this stuff is safe because it's Bible. It's not Book of Mormon, you know, and it's not Mormonism. It's just general Christianity, which we know they have tons of things wrong because of the apostasy, right? So like, it's safe to critique them, like hellfire, like literal burning and damnation. These are terrible things, obviously, you know? So that's how I was getting into it. But then the more I learned, the more I was learning things that also did apply to our beliefs that were extremely problematic. And so, so this is, I think, a point of difference for me from a lot of people who leave the church. It did not come through anti-Mormon material because I would not watch it still or read it or look at it. But I did end up losing my faith in God and Christianity in general. And I never expected that to happen. Even in my wildest dreams, if I ever thought that I might leave the church, I still thought that I would be a Christian. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a backdoor. The army came in like on the side that I wasn't looking on because I thought that side for sure was safe. I guess I have to shore up against the anti-Mormon stuff, you know? Yeah. So, and I was kind of oddly okay with it for a while. I don't know if it's maybe just the shock. It just didn't like percolate. I mean, it took me a while to even admit that I'm not really sure that I believe in God anymore and all of this stuff. And so, but I guess my initial reaction was just like, well, obviously the church has to not be true if that's the case. If all of Christianity falls, then so does the church. But I didn't know any other details. And so I still kind of viewed it on the same plane as all the other ones. Just, you know, this was one more denomination that tried their best. And I mean, they're wrong, but they're wrong just like everybody else is who believes this kind of a belief, you know, and they're just differing on particulars. So that, and I was fine with that. So I just kind of lived in that space for a while. But then I realized one day as I was still watching more videos, it's still fascinating to me. I still like learning about Bible history and ancient Near Eastern history. If something came up that was about Mormons, because it did come up, in these kinds of things, I would still skip it. Like, I don't want to, I don't believe anymore, but I still don't want to hear the anti-Mormon stuff. Anyway, I finally realized like, this is really silly. I don't have to be afraid of this information anymore. And yeah, I can look at it. And so I did. I just got to the point where I was like, I just want to know what's true now. And I know how to research claims. I know how to actually go to source material, you know? So I guess I had always thought before that people who fell for anti-Mormon stuff, like just heard it for the first time. And they were just like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I'm leaving the church, you know, that no one ever actually looked into it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess that was the perception that I had. So I was like, you know, I can be neutral and I can look at this objectively. Yeah, of course, I'm not going to just believe the first thing I hear about everything. And I did. I started looking at the claims. I started with the CES letter, but I'm going to the sources. I don't want to just take Jeremy's word for it that these things are there. So I start looking it up. And it was really shocking to me. So then I actually started to deconstruct the Mormonism at that point. And so I think the things, like some of the most shocking, like my testimony, a lot of it was based on the Book of Mormon and the first vision and the restoration of the priesthood. These things were all, you know, they were just strong. And again, until the end, I think if the Bible stuff hadn't happened, I think I would still be LDS now because I would not still have not looked at that stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, those were the three pivotal and foundational events on Mormon.
Oh, and the witnesses, like the witnesses to the Book of, those were always really huge to me, and they were just rock solid. So to learn about spiritual sight, you know, and all of these things, or to the priesthood restoration was, you know, kind of a backdated prophecy kind of the thing. Everything was backdated. It just was really shocking to me that I didn't know that. I knew that there were different first visions, but I didn't realize like the timeline of it, you know. And of course I accepted the really poor apologetics about the differences, but when you don't have a dog in the fight anymore, when you don't have to support the Mormonism, then it's just so much more clear just how obvious it is, you know?
Can I just break into your story to make an
Yeah.
observation? I think that your story illustrates what an excellent job the church does in instilling fear in its members of looking at outside sources.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to mention that, because sometimes people who maybe haven't been member of the church, and it's not always so easy. I mean, we can find different sites from General Conference, we need more Nephi and less Wi-Fi, that kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And we'll find these here and there, but I think the general authorities understand they can't hit that too hard without looking like a bunch of troglodytes, and it'll be obvious what they're doing. So they try and hint at it as hard as they can, but that message comes through loud and clear to the membership generally from the leaders, both the higher leaders and the local leaders, to the point where you were so scared of looking at anti-Mormon literature that even after you lost your faith in God and even in the church, you still were scared of looking at it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It took me a couple weeks before I was willing to take it seriously. So
what was the final straw? Was it joining us on Mormonism Live?
No, I guess it's hard to say like final straw for what, because I mean, I had already lost faith at that point. The worst part of the CES letter for me was Helen Mar Kimball, actually, was her story. And again, I went to read like her actual words. So there was like, one sentence in the CES letter from her, one or two, a little snippet, but I wanted to go read the whole thing. So I did. And this, I guess, goes to like just one story from my childhood. I do want to show this map. Let's see, let me pull it up on my slides. Could you put that up, Bill?
Yeah, it sounds like one of these things where
so
you're
here,
reading
this was extremely
I was just trying
impactful
to
to
fill
me.
in time, but go ahead.
Sorry, no, I've got it. I can take care of it. So this is what happened. So with this map that I'm showing here, this is a map of southern Utah. And so we've got St. George is kind of like marked there.
That looks familiar.
So this is actually Ogden's flooring, because I made a visit there for something for my friend, and I never like took this label off. But if you go over to the east, there you could see Apple Valley.
Yes, I see.
And then if you continue going along the road where Apple Valley is, there's Colorado City and Hilldale. That's where the FLDS compound is. That's where Warren Jeffs was. Like, that's where these fundamental like polygamists are. And they were such a normal part of life. So I lived in Apple Valley. That's where I lived when I was in high school, and I graduated from Hurricane High. So it's spelled like hurricane for people who are not familiar with this area, but that is not how it is pronounced. So anyway, yeah, like those were my neighbors, was this next town over. And so the thing that stood out to me about Helen Mar Kimball was when I was 14, I did learn that Joseph Smith had a 14-year-old wife. I didn't know her name. I didn't know anything about her.
And so you were 14 years old yourself when you learned
I was 14 when I learned this. And so again, I was a very devout teenager. I was very scrupulous. So this was something that I had to wrestle with and make it okay, right? And so I did. But of course, you can't help but think, I think I'm not the only one that does this. Like, if I was a pioneer, would I have been faithful? If I lived in Joseph Smith's time, would I have been faithful, or would I have gone, astray after this or after that? I would think about this kind of stuff all the time, because the most important thing in the whole entire world is to be faithful and end up in heaven. So you have your eternity and your salvation. So dying young, being a martyr like Joseph Smith, or, all these losing everything like the pioneers did. I wanted to think that if I had been there, I would be one that would be faithful. So learning this, I just started to imagine, like, what if I'm 14? What if I was asked to marry the prophet? And of course, that would never happen. So I don't have to worry about that. But I didn't let myself off the hook. I was like, well, what if it did though? What if it did? And so I just wrestled with it until I felt confident that I could say I would, because I trust Heavenly Father, and he would never ask me to do that if it wasn't good for me. And even if it wasn't like the best existence ever, even if I wasn't really happy, like, I'd be happy in eternity. That's the most important part. The pioneers weren't always happy, you know, like being a member of the church doesn't always mean sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes it means a lot of trials. So I was like, either way, if I'm happy, it's because God wanted me to be happy in this life. And if not, I'll be happy in the next. That's what's most important.
Circular
so I got
reasoning.
myself there. Yeah. So I got myself there and again, of course, it didn't occur to me that if I was asked by the prophet that there was a chance that was just a man doing it, because it was just so intrinsically tied. If the prophet asked me to do something, God was asking me to do something.
Right.
That it was just automatic. So when I read Helen's journals and the things that she said, I am going to get emotional. I thought it was going to be okay. It was the exact same stuff. She was looking forward to like her eternal paradise. She was not happy. You know, she didn't like it. And that was something also like I had thought to kind of try to excuse it, not just at 14, but continue with when people try to throw that at you on your mission, you know, like he married teenagers, like you think it was a different time. And, you know, maybe she was really mature, like God knows her better than everybody else. So how can we judge her? You know, but her words are right there. She wasn't happy. She wasn't, you know, it was coercion. And so it just hurt because I knew like if it had been me, I would have done the same thing. It just broke my heart for her. I just, you know, and even though like I really don't think that there's an afterlife. I mean, there could be. I haven't cared. I actually like a lot of people really struggle with nihilism and things like that when they lose their faith. And when I initially lost it, I didn't. I was like, I can still be happy. It's okay. You know, I was okay with like losing heaven, but like these are the times like that I wish there could be, because I wish there could be a heaven for Helen Mar Kimball, because I think she deserves it, you know? And I want there to be a hell for Joseph Smith, you know, because I think that's what he deserves, you know? But those are the only times like I ever wish there was a heaven, is like for people who really wanted that and deserved it. So that was the hardest for me. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
well, you're
even
getting
then,
me
like,
too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maven.
I mean, I'm crying now, but I didn't cry then. I was angry.
Mhm.
I was just really, really angry. And that's where things really started to change, I guess. And maybe that's where like the beginnings of Maven starts to happen. Because I mean, before when it was just Christianity in general, it was just like, oops, you know, it's a human thing. You know, there's billions of us that have made the same mistake, you know, but learning all this stuff, just so much deception and dishonesty and so much harm, you know, I just felt betrayed. Like that's where like the feelings that everyone else feels, the betrayal, the grief, you just feel like an idiot, you know, but then there's also the loss. And then there's the panic because what do I tell my family? Like, I never thought this was happening. You know, what's going on? So I was angry for like a week and I didn't cry, which was weird because I am a crier. You know, and people like to make fun of like the TBMs that will like tear up at everything. And I was totally one of them. And it was sincere. I know some people can fake it, but I'm just an emotional person. So I thought it was weird that I wasn't crying. But I was breaking down. And I know there's a point where I was standing in my kitchen and I was looking out the window. It was a beautiful day outside. And I was just thinking like, this is a major, major thing. My whole life has been about Mormonism. That's like my whole personality has been. I should have more of a reaction. But then I started talking to myself out loud. I was like, no, I don't. Who cares? I mean, yeah, it's been my whole life, but like, I can move on. I'm fine. I thought it was true. Now I know it's not. So what? I'm fine. I'm fine. And I'm saying this out loud. If anyone was there, they would have known like I'm losing it, but I didn't feel like I was losing it, but I just kept saying it over and over and over and over and over again for a long time. I'm fine. I'm fine. I can move on. I've changed things. I've done scary things in my life before. It's fine. I don't need to cry about this. This is actually really great. I'm fine. And then, I mean, that was the conversation for that day. And then I think it was about a week after that. It was actually Christmas Day. I was working security at that time, full time. and I did overnight shift. So I had done an overnight shift, and I came home. I had talked to my family. They were just getting up as I was just, getting ready to go to sleep. And then I don't know if it was just like being Christmas or just like thinking about because I did not want to be with my family. I'm so sorry. I keep hitting my mic, guys. I didn't want to be with my family because it was still all really fresh for me at that point. I didn't know if I would say anything, so I had volunteered to work that day. But yeah, I'm sitting at home, and then that just everything broke, and I just sobbed just for hours, and off and on, and over the next few days too. I would be fine. I'd be like, okay, I got it out of my system. I'm good. This is not a big deal. The world's actually really great, and everything's gonna be fine. And then, it would be 30 minutes later, just crying, I just couldn't help it. So it took a lot to really finally be okay. And even then, even now it happens. It's been a couple years now, but it's just so not where I ever thought I would be when I was younger. I never really thought that this would ever happen to me. And I tried so hard for it not to happen to me. So I would be in a Reddit thread and saying something, and I would just have a moment where I'm almost pulled out of body, where I'm look at me. I can't believe I'm doing this. Here I am in an ex-Mormon thread discussing, an RFM podcast, and I, making fun of leaders. I never thought I would ever do that, or say things about them that are true. But
doesn't it feel great?
It does, yeah. So I would have moments for that where I would just be like, "How did I get here? How did this happen?" So that's my deconstruction, and I was angry, and at the time I did think I want to do something. I want to be outspoken. But I also, there's a lot of examples, from people who, blew up relationships doing that. And so I decided to keep it under wraps till I had more time to process it. And I realized a lot of people do, it seems like a year seems to be the roughest time. And a lot of people become okay. I don't know if you guys actually have more idea or data of that, but it seemed like even in the ex-Mormon Reddit, if someone did a poll, a lot of people there active were in the first year of leaving the church, and things dropped off really quickly after that. So I was like, I'll give it a year. But it's been 2 years. I still am fascinated with the church and the history, and I'm still surrounded by it. I'm still affected by it. So at this point, I'm I think I want to be in it and join it. I think I'm not going to be one of the leave it aloners. I'm not, I don't want to leave it alone.
Maven, we have been going for an hour and a half now. I don't want to put a limit on you, but
that's basically it.
No, it's not quite it.
Okay.
Because here's what I would like to ask you to finish with. You have been with us under a pseudonym. It's still a pseudonym, Maven, and also not showing your face. Tonight, for the first time on Mormonism Live, you are showing your face. And I was wondering if you would share with the audience what's been going on in your personal life that accounts for this change.
I finally told my family, just my immediate family. And that's all. I only have 2 friends that are believers that even know. But it was my family I was kind of holding out for. I just didn't. I think we all know there's a point of no return, and so I'm forever going to be different. And for a long time, I wasn't ready. But you can't hide yourself forever for family, And so I feel like enough time has passed that I don't know. I still get angry a lot. So I feel like I'm past the angry stage, but then something will happen that's just so unfair. It really gets to me. But I started working with the show. I want to start helping. And at some point, if you want to help, you can't be hiding anymore, So when I started helping out with the show, I knew that there was a time, and I'm kind of grateful really, because it needed to happen. And so it finally did. I guess just enough things were coming together that I was finally ready to do it. So I did that this Sunday.
Somebody
you want to know what happens, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Somebody's asking here.
Sorry, go
why?
Ahead,
sorry. Somebody's asking how you got joined up with the show, and
okay.
People over the last year or so have volunteered to help. And I've always turned that down, only because I'm always scared of giving any sort of control to outside people that I don't know. And you came up to RFM and I at Thrive, and I don't know, just something connected.
Yeah.
And you said
I
you'd
can
love
go there.
to help, and
Yeah.
and I said let's give this a try.
So if I were to go back a little bit, like one of the things that I've been doing since deconstructing is just figuring out who I am, because that was part of the revelation. Like when I really lost everything was I don't even know who I am. Every decision I've ever made has been revolving around the church and the doctrines of the church, including even jobs, because I'd actually thought that I would get married. I always planned on that. And my education was never meant to be for a career. It was just to be educated, to be a better mother. Right. And so even as the years would continually go by, I never felt like I could pursue or start looking for a career, because I was sure marriage was just around the corner. So it'd be a waste of time to go back to school, and a waste of money, to get loans that my husband would end up having to pay for, and I would drop out anyway because I'm getting older. So I definitely need to start having children as soon as that marriage happens. Right. So after deconstructing, I just was finally in a place where I was like, I've got to figure out what I want to do. And that still took a long time for me to figure out, but I decided I really do like being involved in content creation in some way. So I think I want to get involved in film or audio, this kind of a thing. And so I've been making some headway with that just in the spare time I have with the full-time job that I have. But as I was learning, I'm listening to the show, and every once in a while, Bill, you would say, there'd be a problem. You'd say, if anyone knows how to fix this, let me know. Or if anyone has a solution for this. And I just always thought there's definitely got to be like audiovisual people out there, experts who will call and they will help Bill with this. But it never happened, And, another week would go by and something would happen. And Bill, you would ask again, like, hey, if anybody knows a solution for this, call in. And I think because my confidence has grown so much outside of the church, because I'm my own person now. One of those days, I just thought, those experts have had their chance and they're not calling in. I'm not an expert, but I'm interested in this. So I'm going to figure it out. It's going to be me. So I started some preliminary research to try to figure out what I could before I approached you at Thrive. And then I ended up, I got more information from you. I did some more, and then I called you at work. And I remember the person who answered, they were like, when I asked for you, I don't know if you get a lot of calls for people like trying to.
I do.
I got the sense that she was a gatekeeper, but I'm a gatekeeper. So I was like, I can handle this, no problem. So I just left my way. She was like, can I ask what this is in reference to? And I was like, yeah, Bill told me to call. It's about an equipment issue he has. And so that was enough. That was all I had to do. I just said it really confidently. And then I got you on the phone.
For all those,
so then I explained it to you.
Yeah, for all those watching and listening, you just have to bluff your way through the people who answer the phones at Family Pond.
There you go.
Then you get put through to Bill Reel. By the way, can I just say, just real quick?
Yeah.
You got through, and I'm glad you did. For the record, please email me at Mormon Discussions, plural, podcast, plural, @gmail.com. Don't call me at work unless you really do have a solution for a problem, which Maven had. Yeah.
Yes. and I presented it. And it was what, like the call screener software, which I thought would figure, solve the other audio issue with RFM being heard on phone calls. So,
right. That was a long-standing issue that we had. Yeah. You're the one who solved that, Maven.
Yeah. And then I remember pitching, because I really wanted to help. I didn't think Bill was going to go for it, but I was like, if you use this program, you can have a live person screening, and it could be anybody, but it should be me. I think I said something like that. I just threw it out there. I don't know. I'm a new person now, so there's things that I just never would have ever done before. I would not have had the gall to not know something thoroughly, but still say, like, I think I can solve your problem. Yeah, but I don't know. It's just time. I don't want to waste any more of my life, and I don't know how much longer I have. It could be 30 years, 40, or it could be 5. My number could be up next year. You never know. I just don't want to waste any more time, preparing or trying to become an expert at something first. So yeah, I just decided I'm going to do it. It's going to be me.
So
And I was right
Go ahead, Bill.
this time.
I was just going to say, so the way this is working today, within 24 hours, you had a solution for me on the call-in stuff, which is a program called Call-in Studio. And the funny thing is that we still use that FIS number as the original call-in number that I have to call each time to get into the studio. But usually you're screening calls. But tonight, I've got an automatic screener working to do this, computerized screener, right? We talked about this, and you helped me figure this out. So
we knew that's why I had to pitch why you should have a live person and not use the automatic screener.
Yeah. And I'll tell you too, I just want to stop for a moment here and just say, we brought you on board really to manage all this stuff behind the scenes, to handle screening calls, to put slides up on the screen when it was the right moment. So I didn't have to have my one-track mind doing two things at once. And maybe I could be a little more focused on the things that RFM is inserting into the conversation that have to do with Shakespeare and funny movie lines and other things. And so now I've got a little more time. I'm actually catching a few more of those. But what I wasn't ready for, Maven, is that you are articulate, you are witty, you speak, like your mind works really quickly. You're powerful. You basically chose what things you were going to talk about tonight. And RFM and I basically just sat by and listened to what you thought was important about your story.
Oh, I had RFM
story.
was helping me.
But it was your story.
But yeah.
And you led it. And people really have resonated with you generally, and they really resonated with your story tonight. And I couldn't be happier to have you as a help to this show, but more than that, as a powerful female voice that has been lacking from Mormonism Live. And so I really appreciate what you add to our program. And you really are one of the team at this point. So thank you for taking the chance to reach out and to see if it would work. And thanks for doing all that you do.
I think that was my favorite thing about doing the modding and things. It was just seeing how much more fun it seemed like you and RFM were having, with you being able to concentrate. That was something that made me feel really good at the end of episodes, like when the banter was, especially the Bigfoot one, like that was really fun. The chats were like, it was awesome. Yeah.
Dear Jesus.
yes.
So this is the Victory for Satan segment of the show where callers call 662 and then Mormons with an S on the end. It also has.
Thank you for that comment, Dan.
Yeah, it's a mark of the beast in there. Yeah, I put that up there for a while. All right. So with that, I have a Erwin Magrin, maybe. Let's see if this works. Are you on the line, my friend?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can. So you're on Mormonism Live with Maven and myself and RFM. What's on your mind tonight, my friend?
Well, it's the first time I actually watched the live show. I was planning to go to bed because here in France it's like almost 4 a.m. But then I was like, Unmasking of Maven. I was like, oh, I'm not going to miss that. No way I'm watching the replay. And just wanted to, say hi to you guys and give a huge shout out to Maven. Great to finally see you. I've been hearing your voice for a while now. So, and your story about deconstructing your faith is a bit what led me to RFM and to all other ex-Mormon YouTube channels. And it's really nice to find out like a community of people that go through the same kind of faith crisis, even if mine happened 10 years after the fact that I basically left the church. I was inactive for 10 years before I got through the CS letter and all of that, and it created a faith crisis that I didn't know I had.
Right.
For a faith that I lost years ago, like for Christianity or for just God altogether. And
it's strange how that can happen.
Of shame and anger and stuff like that. And I think you guys having those videos and stories really helps learn more stuff about the church and how it actually happened, but just to get through it all together.
I agree. I think the podcasts and the communities were incredibly helpful to me in deconstructing and I think the best part of the community is helping each other out in a really tough time. Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you, caller.
So yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you.
What time
caller.
did you say it was for you? Sorry. Like
Just
4 a.m.?
Right now, 4 a.m.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Erwin.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll tell you too, another cool thing is this idea of community, right? When people leave a high demand fundamentalist religion, they really do lose something and they're trying to figure out how to find some of it again. And I got to say, one of the things I've really been thrilled with and I was kind of worried about, and there's been little hiccups here or there, but generally super small, is the folks who participate in these, it's over on that direction, the people who participate in these chats as we're doing the episode. To me, it's amazing to get hundreds of people who are commenting and and there's certain people who show up every week and they've got their own personality and they make the show so much more funny. I couldn't be more tickled with the way things are going, and Maven, you're a huge part of that.
Thank you. Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Anything? I don't have any other callers up on the screen yet. If anybody wants to call, give it a shot. 662 Mormons or 662-667, the mark of the beast 666, and add another 7 on the end just for good luck. And come on into the show, and would love to hear from you. We'll hang around another minute or two here and see if another call or two comes in.
Yeah, so everybody knows when I'm doing this podcast, I do not have access to seeing the live chat. All I can see are the comments that Bill or Maven throw up on the screen. And half the time I'm trying not to pay too much attention to those because they can distract me and sometimes crack me up in an inopportune moment. But I do come religiously to the underground bunker the morning after on Thursday morning, bright and early, and I spend half an hour to an hour reading through the live chat. And it is obvious that there is a great tailgate party going on in the live chat every Wednesday evening.
You better get up an extra hour early, RFM. I'm going to tell you point blank, the comments came in faster and all through the show than I've ever seen for any other episode. So
I wonder what the reason for that could be, Bill.
I wonder. Set the alarm early, my friend.
It's the porn shoulders.
Yep.
There's a peek in the thumbnail.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that until you pointed it out.
The pattern of the shirt, but yeah, I'm showing the porn shoulders. And they're porn shoulders because there's enough fabric, to actually be a shirt. If I was wearing a bathing suit, they would be okay. So, sorry, gentlemen.
Okay,
Hope you'll be okay.
We do have a few more callers.
Okay.
So here is, I believe, Sarah. Sarah, you are on Mormonism Live with Maven, RFM, and myself. Any thoughts on tonight's show?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, you are on the show live.
All right. So, Maven, I related to so many parts of your story. And when you were talking about wrestling with the idea, if you would join the church with Joseph during the time of Joseph Smith and doing all those things, but I would have remained faithful during this. I just had very similar thoughts growing up and thinking I don't think I would have joined the church. I'm so glad I was born into it. I wouldn't have joined it. And so, yeah, I just really related.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I absolutely thought that all the time, especially on the mission. Boy, am I so lucky. It's because we were really righteous, of course, in the pre-existence.
All right.
Yes, thank you for that, Sarah. And by the way, it may shock you, Maven and Sarah, to know that as a male member of the LDS Church, I never gave that a thought.
Yeah.
I never
that you were
thought
extra righteous.
No, I never thought about it from the woman's perspective, or God forbid, from the 14-year-old girl's perspective. All I thought about was having more wives than one and whether I would be willing to do that. But that seems like a very small thing compared to what the women experienced, now that I hear your perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't go into this either, but with Helen, and when you learn all the details, it's just really obvious that no loving God would ever or could ever have asked that. It's completely incompatible. So, and that's a sore point with me now, with apologists, especially the ones that try to defend it. The ones that I think it was a Fair's rebuttal. They take words from Helen Mar Kimball's journal, For Eternity Alone. to try to make it sound like it's an eternity ceiling, and that there was no funny business. Yeah.
Right.
But that if you read her poem, she's saying for eternity alone, as in I am doing this for my happiness, the salvation that's been promised to me that I think God will give me after. For that reason alone, for that happiness that I think I'm going to get when I die, that is why, I'm doing this. Whatever apologist put that, actually, no, I think it was in the essays that the apologists did that. I don't know. I mean, obviously they're anonymous, so we don't know who did that, but I have a special place of, hatred in my heart for whoever did that, knowing what they were doing. They had to do it deliberately. It was coercive. Yeah.
There seems
All right.
something especially cynical about taking something like that from the journal of Helen Mar Kimball
Mm-hmm.
and then using it in order to try and argue a theological point that there was no sex between them because it wasn't for time, but only for eternity.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the right words. So I'm sure they felt like they just found their diamond piece right here that makes it all okay.
Right.
But they had to read the rest of it. Yeah. They knew what they were doing.
You can't quote a document without reading it first.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all obfuscation, guys. So, all right, 2 more calls. Jane, you are on the line, Mormonism Live with Maven, RFM, and myself. What's on your mind?
Hey, so I'm Jane, calling from Scotland. My buddy Alana, I'm calling in her behalf too. We wanted to just jump by and say thank you so much, Maven, having another women in a podcasting space. There are so few people representing the women's view in the podcasting space right now. We need you, and you're doing such amazing work. Since you started the chat, the tone in the chat, every now and again, some of the women would have to kind of say, okay, guys, you're getting a little bit, or you're kind of, getting close to the line there. And just the vibe that you brought to the chat is both respectful and so fun. You're a ton of fun in the comments every week. And you're
Thank
really,
you.
really smart. So to have a smart, woman in this space is just so exciting. So, from the UK, we just wanted to send our love and thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane.
Sorry.
No, I get it. I get it. All right. Last
I just
call.
never thought I'd be anything like I
Yeah.
I just always wanted to be small, and just I'm just gonna, get married and just focus on my family. Like that's my role. I just never thought it was my place to ever like do anything public or be a spokesperson of any kind. And I just like I also had like everyone deals with this. I don't feel smart, or I'm just getting a bit emotional. It's a bit much, guys.
It's okay, Maven. I just want to tell you, as the patriarch of this podcast, you were prepared for such a moment as this.
Yeah. Kathy, you are on the line. You're our final caller. Take us home.
I can't say anything that hasn't already been said except, Maven, thank you for being the solution and never veil your face again.
Yeah. Awesome.
I won't. If I do get married, like I'm not gonna have a veil for sure. I've already decided that. I don't care. Yeah. Thank you. I don't want to hide anymore. Yeah.
All right. Well, now you know the third team member of Mormonism Live. I think we gave a good introduction to all of you so that you know now the person behind the avatar, and we probably won't see that avatar much anymore.
Well, I guess that means I'm gonna have to be like made up and stuff. And
Nah, I don't put makeup on. Why should you?
there you go.
It's just an
I don't
arbitrary
have to.
construct,
I just put a little base on powder to try
Little
and
bit,
fill
yeah.
the shine,
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts from you two?
No, I'm just so excited. This went so well. I've been telling Maven all day today and yesterday and for every time we talk how fantastic she was going to do. And she was not an easy sell. But I think that now maybe she's getting an idea for what it was that I envisioned and what it is that she actually is and accomplished tonight on the show. You were fantastic, Maven. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. And thanks, everybody. Thanks in the chat. I'm so excited to go back and read it. You guys are great. And thanks, Bill and RFM, of course.
Sure. Bill, are you muted?
Yeah, I am. Hang on through the credits here. I actually put a new closing in, and when that all gets done, we'll end the show. And then I want to talk to you for just a second, Maven. RFM, feel free to hang around too if you want to, or you can call us here in a minute too.
Is this something that's going to be broadcast?
No, this won't be broadcast at all.
Okay, so we get to the good stuff without the audience listening.
You got it. Have a great night, guys.